Hello,
Hello.
my name is Octavio Solis, and I'm here speaking with Fernanda Valadez, Astrid Rondero, and Claudia Becerril, who worked on the film that we are talking about today, which is translated, the title is translated into English as Identifying Features, but is known in Spanish as
Sin señas particulares.
Enseñas Particulares, which is basically the same thing. And I found it a very powerful movie. I really enjoyed it very, very much. I really would love to have each of you talk about, or we can point it in any direction. I'll start with Fernanda, since she's the director and writer, co-writer and co-producer of the film. On what, I wonder what gave you the idea. Where did the idea originate for this? How were you pulled into this story and into these themes that you address in the movie?
It started quite a few years back, almost 9 years, I'm afraid to say, because we began experiencing a lot of violence in Mexico like 12 years ago. And I believe I was shocked by what was happening and what I was finding out. And there was this very special note in a newspaper about around 10 boys that took a bus to the border to US with intention of crossing, and they just disappeared. And that was something that began happening a lot. And then we began knowing about all these phenomenons of violence and of enforced disappearances, mass killings, and a lot of stuff that was really a human crisis in Mexico. So that's what inspired. And then after a couple of drafts, I began working with Astrid, and it was really with her that the form of the film took shape, and it was really an amazing process that what happened with her.
Did you know each other before? Did you go to film school together?
Not the same film school, but we've been working together for almost 12 years now, since her graduation film. I began working with film as a script supervisor, and then I took over the production because there was an interruption. Well, not an interruption, but that the film wasn't finished. And then we began working together. And when she directs, I produce, and when I direct, she produces, and we begin working also in the script for some years now together.
You mentioned that you started 9 years ago, and you said, I'm afraid to sort of say that it took that long to get the film made, but good projects really take a lot of time to ferment, to gestate. And actually, I think that a story like yours is so universal that it resonates even today, and is probably even more relevant today because, unfortunately, sadly, that violence still continues. Those disappearances are still going on for young men and young women, especially in young women. I'm from El Paso, and right across the border in Juarez, we've had for decades now the desaparecidas, the women in Juarez that are disappeared. So it's a constant ongoing issue, and I think your film feels rather universal for it because of that, don't you think?
That's what we were aiming to. I mean, we were inspired by events that happened perhaps 10 years ago, but then we were feeding from more current events that, like you say, unfortunately are still happening in Mexico. Right. So if you feel it's universal, so, I mean, we're flattered by that, I believe. Thank you.
Do you, both of you, hail from Guanajuato? No?
No, I'm from Mexico City. Fernanda is from Guanajuato, and I think that's why it became like really rich, because there's like a very long tradition in Guanajuato of young people going and crossing to the border, to the other side of the border. So there's a lot of immigration going on there. Yes. So I think that everything came together pretty in a very natural way, like the story. And that's something that Fernanda had in her mind from the very beginning, to talk about this through the eyes of a mother. And I think that when she told me about her first idea, for me was like, she nailed it, because doing that through the eyes of a woman, and it's very interesting because in Mexico, the biggest groups that are really helping out, finding people missing, and like doing all this, like they almost become like, how do you call it? Like activists, is a family, and especially the mothers.
Especially the mothers.
Exactly.
I found that very curious about the film, that men are conspicuously, fathers rather, are conspicuously absent. That it's the mothers who feel this strong urge to learn the truth about their sons or daughters, even if they kind of know that they may have passed away. But where there's an open question, they're driven even more. But associated with that, I saw how in your film both Fernanda, you and Astrid collaborated on producing it. Fernanda directed, you helped co-write it, Astrid. Claudia is the cinematographer. You also have Clarice Jensen doing the music. And I believe even your editor was a woman.
Yes.
It's so interesting, and I think really kind of forward thinking to have a project that is completely, where all the main artists working on it are women. Did you find that empowering? Did you find that helped further inform the film?
Yes, that was really an amazing process. I believe we enjoyed the shooting, even it's a very confronting issue. It was a very joyous experience, really. And collaborating with women, it began happening a few years back, kind of like a coincidence, like a kindred spirits working towards making films. But then I really like working with women. I believe women, I mean, the team we work with are very talented people and also flexible. And with this film was necessary to have flexible filmmakers, because the budget was so tight that we kind of mixed positions into a very small team. At some point, it was only Astrid, Claudia, and myself doing the film. When we went to the border, Astrid was also recording the sound. So,
oh my God. The sound
something very interesting happened, that we got the chance to shoot some very interesting scenes, and the people really didn't think that we were doing something important. So that's the reason why we got away with it. Yeah, crossing the border, for instance, they never thought that we were rolling. Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about that in a minute, but I want to bring Claudia into this. When did you enter into the project, Claudia?
Like almost 1 year, I think, before we started shooting. We went to Guanajuato to film a teaser. Mm-hmm. So then Fernanda asked me to invite me to the film.
By the time you joined, was there a completely finished script?
Yes.
And did you have any sway over the script as you were shooting, as you were going around from location to location? Did you have sway in the ideas?
Como tener, poderte involucrar.
Yes, of course. We did like 2 scoutings or 3 maybe before, or more, 3 I think, before in different
seasons.
Like seasons. Yes. So we start to imagine where were the best place to film some scenes, and I think we changed a lot of things during this process, because the spaces were amazing. Yeah.
So it was kind of almost it was kind of a 3-way partnership between the 3 of you.
Yeah, it really was.
And then of course you have your lead actor. Oh my Lord, she's fantastic. I didn't believe she was an actor at first, because she seemed like a person that is in the world. There's no affectations to her. She was just so natural. she seemed not actorly. You know, I don't know if that how to translate into Spanish, but she seemed very real and very natural, and yet it's because of her tremendous power as an actor. What was that process like working with her?
I began working with her also quite a long time ago, because we shot a short film first, and that was my graduation film. And that film was an exploration and an essay for the feature.
Yes,
And
I should quickly mention that her name is Mercedes Hernandez.
Mercedes Hernandez, yes.
And she's a powerhouse. She was, I thought, quite good in this.
She's amazing indeed. And when we shot the film, this short film before the feature that was premiered in 2014, I already knew I wanted to work with her for the feature. And she's quite an experienced actor in Mexico. But one of her abilities is to mix with non-actors, and perhaps that's because she's also a storyteller. Like I don't know the translation in English, but she actually tells stories, oral stories.
Cuentos.
Cuentos, like a performer.
Mm-hmm.
And she has this ability of reproducing and understanding the oral feeling of different kind of Spanish in different regions. So I believe that that's one of the reasons she blended so well with the other actors, because we have two professional actors, Mercedes Hernandez and David Illescas.
David, he was fantastic too.
He's the actor that plays Miguel, and both of them, I believe, have this quality. And most of the rest of the cast are from Guanajuato. Most of them are non-professional, and I believe it was with the help of Magdalena and with Mercedes and David that I was able to work with the rest of them.
I see. Very good. You know, there's a you mentioned in the notes that I have on your booklet that was handed out to us before this, that there were, of course, part of the reason it took 9 years is there were funding issues that you had, but it made for a truer, rawer film in the way it was shot. There's a kind of beauty in the stillness of these long shots, and I guess the credit goes both to both of you, Astrid and Fernanda, but also to Claudia in the beautiful way in which she shot these scenes, and to your editor, who could have cut away sooner, but instead lingered long on these really beautiful shots that allowed us to enter into the consciousness of the characters. Tell us about that process, because it's anti-thriller. It feels like this could be a movie that, you know, that could be a thriller about somebody chasing, you know, trying to find the truth about her son, trying to find her son, and the danger that she undergoes, and could be written like a thriller, but that's not what you wanted. It seems more poetic to me.
Well, I actually kind of have a thriller in mind, so perhaps I messed it up.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of tension. There's a lot of tension, for sure, but it's not about.
I'm joking, but I did wanted to feel it like a search or like a journey into the unknown, and we made a lot of tests, even from the script with Astrid, and also with Claudia, and then with Susie.
The editor.
Susan Corda, the editor.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk a little about her, because I believe the rhythm, perhaps when I was shooting and during the first cuts, it was kind of longer, but then we went to Cine en Construcción, the work in progress of the San Sebastian Film Festival, and we realized that we lost the audience at some point. And then Susie came in, and she's very funny, and she's so talented. We also met her around 2009, and she was really perhaps the last step to achieving the right rhythm. And she would joke with Astrid, and she would say, if Fernanda wants to leave the shot longer, then remove 20 frames, and then perhaps I'm going to remove another 10. So it was kind of,
negotiation.
yeah, like a teamwork really in finding the rhythm. But I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Well, because we also edited, so it's just like, so we know each other, so we know our rhythms. I'm like faster, even the way I speak, we are just like quite different. So when Fernanda stays, I wanted to cut, and then Susie came up and just like took some material back. So
Right.
she's the balance, I think, of the work together. So that's why we feel so blessed that we have a team already, a strong team, that we all know each other. So I think that you can feel that in the film. After San Sebastian, we worked a lot on the last cut, and I think that we found that balance for the film.
Yeah, because it still feels like it feels lyrical, it feels poetic. It doesn't feel like, it feels natural, but it doesn't feel like it's, like a high-paced, high drama, chase movie or a search movie. The search continues, but it's a two-pronged story, one involving Miguel and one involving Magdalena, and then how they intersect. The shot that I want to talk about is, and I'll aim this to Claudia, is the one of Miguel coming back into Mexico. That seems to be so real, so much like what it's actually like to be deported. So it seems, and it was shot from behind. We weren't looking at his face. We saw only the back of his head, and followed him in from the U.S. side through the whole checkpoint thing all the way into Mexico, and made me feel like I was being deported. So can you talk a little bit about how that shot was crafted, Claudia?
It's because it's real, because Fernanda, Miguel, and I, literally crossed the border, and we shoot the scene without any permission. So with Sony Alpha, that is a camera this size. So we were walking behind Miguel, and ¿cómo se saludar? Saying hello to the policeman. So it was absolutely un robo.
It was guerrilla. It's like guerrilla filmmaking. You're like guerrilla, just doing it.
Yeah, you feel that way because it's real. Yeah, it's
real.
The way that,
Did you have to, did they ask you as you were going for, like, well, I guess if you're going into Mexico, they don't ask you for papers then, right?
No.
So you just walked in.
Yes.
Now, if you needed to do the shot again, could you walk back?
Yeah.
No,
we don't. That was the only.
That was one shot.
One shot. Yeah.
One shot. Had to get it right.
Yeah.
That we when we were pre-producing, we tried to get a permission, but because that area is controlled by how do you translate aduana?
Well, like the customs,
but also the tax institution in Mexico.
Right.
It's really difficult. We had already tried in a previous film, in Astrid's film, and we couldn't. We tried again, and we were denied.
And that just changed like 3 years ago. Before that, you could literally just cross walking the border without anybody asking you anything. From the US to Mexico, it's completely different than the other way around. So for Mexicans entering the US, it's just like so complicated that it's absolutely impossible. But in the other way around, even though we have the customs, you have to go through customs, basically it's very easy
Yeah, it's very easy.
to bring things. That's why we have this crisis with guns and all that.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons.
Can I ask you another question? I wonder if when you were out shooting in the desert and following the journey of these two main characters, Miguel and Magdalena and Miguel, did you ever feel like you were in danger?
Well, you have your answer.
Yeah, well,
Her answer is no, that everything was very safe and that she didn't feel the danger, but that it was quite dangerous at that point. And that's another thing that I, as a producer, I felt that being women helped a lot, because they didn't feel like we were doing anything dangerous for the communities. Just after we left Guanajuato, which is a very safe, because I have to say that almost everything that's in the film is the state of Guanajuato.
Mm-hmm.
Fernanda's from there, so that's why she felt like everything was like safe.
Very good.
Just after we left, Guanajuato became like national news, because they discovered that they were like trafficking with oil, with gasoline. So it was like a terrible crisis. And now Guanajuato is the #1 state in like a dangerous state in Mexico, which is even before
while we were shooting
even before then, that the northern states that usually were the top of the line in crimes. So Guanajuato now, it's a very dangerous state, and that feeling I really, as we were producing the film, I really felt that we were in a dangerous zone, but we felt like covered and protected. Because of Fernanda being from there and us being women, and they felt like we were doing just like an exciting film, and everybody was just like so excited at doing the film, and they didn't know that we were talking about these hard issues also, right? So it was a little bit like
happy-go-lucky, perhaps, yeah.
Happy-go-lucky, I think.
Yeah. Right. Even though you were making a really hard movie. Here's the other thing I wondered if you could address a little bit, because I see some parallels in some things that you did in your film. There's the aspect of the supernatural that you bring in. It seems like at some point it's almost becomes too hard to simply deal with such human horror that it finally has to take on a kind of supernatural dimension. So you see the devil, you see evil around the fire. And evil is what causes her to lose her 2 sons. Really, she loses 2 sons at the end of the movie. But it feels like at its darkest, at its most dangerous, it's too hard to confront this simply as a human issue, and then it takes on it jumps genre into a different, more supernatural form. And I know that there's another writer, another filmmaker, Isa Lopez, who did Vuelven, or in the English title is Tigers. I forget the English title, but the film is called Vuelven.
Even tigers have something, no? Even tigers
are alive, or
something like that. Yeah. Okay.
And it's a powerful movie too. But at some point, the horror that she's dealing with, it has to jump into a different form, so that the dead can walk and then claim some vengeance, some response, some atonement. They have the bad guys have to pay in some way for that. Guillermo del Toro does it in his films, and you can go all the way back to Los Olvidados, to Buñuel, and how he dealt with street kids and the hard life in Mexico City. And then at some point, things take on a very supernatural, it jumps into the supernatural, and before landing back in the real hard reality. How did you come to the decision to bring in that aspect into your film?
I believe I was struggling during the first drafts in this effort of showing and dealing with violence. And I was trying different sequences. And at some point I realized I kind of was drifting to pornography of violence, if I can so to name it that way. And then it was talking to Astrid that we came up with the idea of tackling the violence in a more metaphoric way, that we kind of wanted to make it more powerful by reducing the detail and make it more mysterious and metaphoric, if I can describe it that way. Because really, when tackling the details of violence, it kind of seemed like detaching ourselves from the emotional impact of violence. So it was counter-effective. So by not showing the violence, we believed it was more powerful in the emotional way, in the emotional impact.
For one thing, I saw when they bring the book of photographs that the two mothers have to look through, excuse me, we never see those images at all. We see items sometimes, but we never see the bodies or what they've done in too graphic a way. And I thought it was even more powerful. You focus instead on the women's faces, because the focus of the film isn't the violence, it's effect on the women, on the mothers who have to see their sons in this way. And when you do that, it just resonates in so many different ways. Claudia, how was that scene? How did you film that scene in the fire how did you choose your approach to presenting Satanas in that way?
The final one, or the because there are two scenes.
There are two.
Yeah.
One at the very end.
Yeah.
And one earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you do that?
So we used baby lenses.
Mm-hmm.
So Fernanda and I made a lot of pruebas, ¿cómo se dice? Ay, no puede ser. A lot of tests. And we decided to use this mask because, I remember. There was a Halloween when we were making this test. So we want to try a mask. So with the baby lenses and the fire and all of these things, that was the way we choose to approach to the devil. Yeah, but because we thought a lot of possibilities.
You also shot in slow motion, is that right?
Yes.
And slow
motion? Yeah, no, I think no.
Some of the shots are 60 frames and reversed.
Reversed.
Yeah.
Oh.
When the devil is lifting the machete,
yes,
in the silhouette, it's reversed in post-production, but it's shot in 60 frames. And
it was made with very few equipment. That's something I want to say, that poor Claudia, she was like trying to find a way to do a very interesting scene with just like the fire. Basically it was just fire, candles, and maybe the lenses and the mask, and that was all we had.
amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. For me, I also always think about Claudia being this kind of cinematographer that really takes the best out of what she has, and she's like really, she has a wonderful life.
And when I was talking to you about the flexibility that she comes to with all these things, like how are we going to do smoke if we don't have money for a big smoke machine? And then we made tests with dried leaves and with dried corn leaves and with all kind of stuff, with different kind of clays. And I mean, she really is amazing with that. And
She's a magician. I mean, being a cinematographer, you have to be a kind of magician. And yeah, she didn't have a lot to work with in terms of resources, but she had the one tool that really served you well, and that's her imagination.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's really what served her well in this process, because the film has a kind of elegance and beauty that is really makes this subject matter so compelling and so human, ultimately. Is there anything you ladies would like to express or talk about before we finish this up?
Because
No.
well, just really the experience of this film, I believe now it makes a resonance in reverse, because it was such a tight budget and such a small, wonderful crew that now makes in this, while we are facing this crisis, and we believe it's going to be hard to make independent films in Mexico, because the economy is going to be so big top after COVID-19, that I'm very thankful for the experience of not having a lot of resources, because it made us imagine a way of producing that is going to come in handy in the next few years.
I have to also say that I'm heartened by the fact that there are quite a number of women that are becoming directors and producers in Mexico. I think that's a really good sign, and so I commend you on that. And on amassing this team of powerful, really thoughtful and imaginative women artists to help make this film. Because I just think there's something, it feels like a movement, and I don't think you should rest just because COVID-19 is in the way. I think you guys should keep doing what you're doing, because it's going to be because this thing's it'll be over at some point, and people will be hungry for your work.
I hope so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I hope you've had other showings of this film in other festivals, and if not, I hope that this opens the door to more festival showings.
Yeah, we hope that we will. In fact, we still have some festivals ahead. So we're really thankful for all your effort in doing this festival during the quarantine. So thank you very much for having our thing.
I'm just the the question to the moderator that I wish I were more involved in the independent festival.
Okay. Well, anyway, it's great for us to
And it's great talking to you, being a writer yourself.
Yes, I'm a playwright. I work in theater, but I'm a student of film, and I love film very, very much.
Thank you very much.
And I can see how many of the things that I've studied in other great movies, I can see how they are tracking in yours. You're kind of creating new ground. So thank you.
You're very generous. Thank you very much.
Bye to the kitty. Claudia, Fernanda, Astrid, mucho gusto.
Igualmente.
Felicidades.
Gracias.
Fabulosa.
Gracias.
Take care. Bye-bye.